Hello and welcome to Cosmic Crap, a podcast. Every time I'm like, I should look up what this is. It's a podcast, a lousy podcast from two people that are just trying to fucking make it through the day. I'm Ariel.
Hi, I'm Mousa. I'm glad that I don't need to say the description of the podcast.
And someday we'll figure out how to do this correctly. So I want to say first, I've got a little bit of a chest cold, so I'm coughing like crazy. I'm going to try to mute myself when I cough so that you don't have to hear it, but we shall see. All right, so it's been 2 weeks. How have you been? What have you been up to?
Oh, well, a lot of things. I went to so many places. I was on the road, and I got quite distracted by so many things. I also had to work a lot, and that was basically at work and just moving around.
That's good. Our little kitty is still very, very sick. She went into the kitty hospital 3 times in the last 2 weeks, and she's not eating. They finally figured out what's wrong with her, but it's this like crazy infection in her nose. And now she has a feeding tube placed, trigger warning for medical stuff, literally in the side of her neck. And she has to get feedings every 8 hours and medication through this little thing. And it just, it's hard. It's hard to watch this like sweet, she's like the sweetest little, angel. And, sitting with, I don't think that it's suffering. I don't want to use the word suffering because that's something I'm like hyper concerned about is like, putting her through so much that she's suffering. But sitting with her being sick, I'm surprised like how much it kicks up in me, like how much discomfort it brings me. And tomorrow is the 1-year anniversary of my dad's death. And I was like super stressed because I'm like, well, I don't know, like I've never done this before. Obviously, I don't know how am I going to feel? Is it going to be stressful? What? Well, I have not thought about my dad at all because I'm like so stressed that my fucking cat's going to die the same day that my dad died. And I don't want to know what that experience is like. But man, the stress is real.
Yep, it is. I hope
my husband and I go tomorrow up to the mountains here. We're going to spend a couple days at the lake, and we have to take the cat with us because you can't just leave her. And quite frankly, I don't trust like somebody that I don't know to come and care for her. And they couldn't keep her at the hospital, so I'm spending the rest of today like packing like 1 million towels and blankets and all the stuff. And the plan is she's going to sit on my lap as we drive up and stress is so fun.
How far is it from home?
It's about 2-hour drive from here.
Okay.
So not terrible, but not ideal. And it was a weird conversation to have about like, how do you decide what the correct thing to do is in this situation? Because this is a trip that we've had booked for many months. It's, to try to offer me some peace during a weird experience. My husband has no chill when booking hotels, so it's really expensive and non-refundable. So, how do you balance like knowing that he and I need this break and our little baby is sick and not feeling well, and I don't want to like add stress onto her. It was such a weird, managing all parts of it. I don't know how people do this with human children. Like, it seems so exhausting. How do you do it?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Imagine it. It's gonna be too much.
Yeah. One of the other, hold on, I'm about to have a coughing fit. Nope, and I couldn't figure out how to unmute myself. One of the One of the actually good things that has happened this week, though, I have this group of friends that I meet with on Zoom every week, and we met at a yoga training a couple of years ago about like activism in yoga, or using, how they're very intertwined, and all of that. And we've met every week since, and they're great. Like they're just wonderful. And the company that we met at has since shut down. There was one other company here called Accessible Yoga. I'm sure some of our listeners are familiar. It was a nonprofit organization whose sole focus was teaching teachers how to make yoga more accessible. So what do you do when you have different shaped bodies in classes? What do you do when you have somebody, with less limbs, or if they're in a wheelchair, or, how do you teach yoga to like actual human people? And they announced last week that they're dissolving. And now I'm like panicked, because I like, this is like the most necessary work that can be done in yoga. And now these two prominent companies are no more. And so my friends and I I have no idea how we're going to do this. But we're going to try to be that now. So we're talking about, how are we going to put together not teacher training specifically, not like a 200-hour, but like a workshop for specifically making classes accessible to more neurodiversity. So, talking about like sense in class, or music, or how do you it was an interesting conversation, because it was talking about all of the things that you think you shouldn't have to tell somebody, like consent. The conversation around like having physical adjustments on your body in a yoga class, like all of us on this little call have had teachers like come and touch and move our bodies, and I don't know how that's acceptable with no conversation about, is it okay for me to put my hands on you? Do you want a physical adjustment? And one of my friends said, when they did their 200-hour, they said, all you have to do is ask for consent one time, and then you never have to ask again. And I was like, oh my God, that's not how that works. And my God, like anyway, within that conversation, we were talking about where are the lines of appropriation in this? Because technically, when you look at the origin of yoga, it was for affluent men. That's, higher up in the caste system, and people that were disabled did not have access to the practice because they were not, included. It was not for them. So it's sort of an interesting, like, yes, we want to do this thing to help people, but technically we are changing what the origin of yoga is, but not to be a bad person, not to have fun in capitalism. But I would love to hear your thoughts, because I think that's a sort of an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think now you know that my preference is about the goals and what the person needs and what they want and what do they aim for. So basically, it is, of course, a very good idea in the context of yoga, because then it will be like customized per person, which is ideal. But I also have to say this is the way it's supposed to be. So it's because this is not how it is practiced. It doesn't mean this is the default. Yoga is by design is actually customized. Of course, at first, the rules and the postures and also pranayam and all this are somehow standardized, but yeah, but this is only at first, and then afterward people like start to branch out, and then each person will do, yeah, something that might happen, yeah, might be very different from other, yeah, other people. um so I think ideally it would be more about what the person wants. um so, and then based on this, uh, the second layer would be the physical limitations. And then I would say, given those two layers, then we can know what are the things that might work and what are the things that won't work. Yeah, but
Well, so part of the conversation was talking about what yoga was in its origination, but how that didn't really follow yogic principles, because that's the whole point, right? Is that it's meant to be for everybody. But sorry, say that again.
the origin, I mean, it doesn't matter the origin of yoga. Like how the yoga started and how it's supposed to be, and now we are doing it for the differently. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's not holy. You can easily try to do something different. The idea is to actually understand the concept behind yoga. So it's not about the details. It's about why they are doing that in general. So why they are doing hatha? What is the point? It's not about if I am actually putting my head in this pose, or is my feet eh, is like my feet in the right place, or should my arm be in that. All this stuff actually doesn't matter much. Yeah, it doesn't matter more than why you are doing it, what is the main goal behind it, and what is the idea. And then you will try to do things, and then your body will smooth out. um, Somehow what you are looking for will be, I guess, aligned well with what you do. But if you are confused, if the person is confused, they don't know what do they need, they won't be at comfort. It's hard because they are somehow at a conflict. They are doing things that they don't know why they are doing it, or it's not clear to them why. So they will be too focused about their postures and their bodies rather than focusing on um, what do they need it for, which is far more important.
I think that's very complicated, though. I think, yes, I mean, obviously, in a perfect world, that's what people are using to drive their practice. But I think that idea makes an assumption that people are even like self-aware enough to be able to ask those questions of themselves, to even know what's possible, what methods can be used to get there. And so I agree, and I
Mhm.
think I think it's way. I think it takes a really particular mindset to be able to make that the sort of like the driving force, or the focus. Even like I think about how many years I showed up to asana classes, just I don't know, just because I thought you were supposed to, like, you show up and you become enlightened, right? But there's so little like education even to the students of like, okay, here's why we're doing this. Here's what can be a goal. Here's, all of these things. And I think it's worth saying, I did not fact check this. This was one of my friends said this yesterday. We believe that the word asana means seat, or originally meant seat. So it wasn't even like, warrior two, isn't this one? It wasn't like all these crazy poses that you can do. It was simply fucking sit. Like, get your body to a place where you can sit for the many, many, many hours that are required, to meditate to reach enlightenment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think if the person doesn't know why they are doing something, then they shouldn't do it. It's not going to help them very much. If they do it because it feels good, then it's fine. Then they have a reason to do it. The reason doesn't have to be spiritual, doesn't have to be like noble. It doesn't have to be like one of the best things ever. No, it could be just because somebody will feel good. Then okay, then that's it. Then you have it. Um, so the reason actually doesn't have to be very high or quite ambitious or actually anything. But I think the critical point generally is that always people, well, usually they are looking for something outside of themselves. They are um, I don't know how to say it, but it is more like they are looking outwardly. Um, and there's nothing actually wrong with that, but this comes with another thing, which is that it makes them distracted from what is there inside of them, because I'm always focused about the practice. I am always focused about the means. I mean, a good example would be if someone is actually traveling and they want to go to, say, LA, and they are so focused about if they should go there by plane or by train or by car. And instead of thinking about or trying to focus about going to the city, they are so busy thinking about the pros and cons between the plane and the train and also the car. How long actually will it take? What is the experience like? How much money will I spend for each? I think the plane might be good because I can see the sky. I'm not much of a driver. Or maybe the car is better. I like to drive. And then they start to write books about the comparisons between the planes and the trains and the cars. And then they feature some photos of certain cars and certain planes. You see that model? Oh, it looks so good. It looks so fancy. Then, but hey, wait a second. You wanted to go to the city. It doesn't matter. You can choose any of them. It doesn't just like take like few minutes and make a decision and then go. The differences won't be that significant. Like if you take the car, maybe I don't know, you will spend say, for example, more time, but you will be there anyways. So I think that's exactly what happens now. We are too busy thinking about the means, and this one might be better, but the planes are not suitable for everyone. Some people are afraid of flying, so maybe they can take the train. And the trains are too crowded, so maybe the car, it's only you. Or yeah, but I am driving, so maybe I'm not that confident. Maybe I can make an accident. and then the loop actually will never end. And then it turns out that the person never left their place. They stayed home. They never left. The practices and the different types of yoga, etc., um, somehow it will turn into this, because yoga is very rich practice. There's hundreds and hundreds of variations and hundreds and hundreds of methods, and people will get so busy about which one to choose, and um, uh, also based on what? Based on the body and your goal, maybe how long, if you have a teacher or not, if you have a place to practice or not, or if you practice on your own or within a group. Um, you know, the mechanism, I would say mechanics of the things will overwhelm the person that they won't start. And even if they will start, they will still be busy thinking about the practice itself. Um, there's nothing wrong with it, but it will distract you from going to the city, LA, that you wanted to go to in the first place, but now you forgot all about it. You don't remember that anymore because now you are reading the book about the pros and cons between the planes and the trains and the cars. And now you forgot about going to the city. That's it.
I think that for a certain group of people, though, that period of consideration is infinitely important. If you take, for example, somebody who is disabled or somebody who has, some sort of trauma, there's a lot of like sexual assault survivors who will go into a class, and I have had this experience myself where I go into a class that I think is going to be safe, and one thing or another happens where I do not feel safe in a particular space. And it's different now, like now that I have taken my practice more within myself as opposed to going to studios to learn, because that's a whole problem. But it's something that in theory can throw somebody away from yoga forever, because of the potential harm that can be done. And so, yes, you don't want to get into a place where you're just forever like, okay, well, I could do this one, but there's, maybe they're not going to know what to do with my particular body. Okay, maybe I could go to this class, but I don't feel confident that they're going to know to not touch me, or I don't want to go to this class because, whatever. And yes, yoga is super rich and there is something in it for everybody if you can find your little, like, the way that it works best for you. And for some people that's really hard and really scary, and really what people generally have access to is an asana class, or maybe a meditation class, maybe a pranayama class. But I'll speak here in the US. It's the way that the majority of people here learn about what yoga is by going to a studio and going to a class. So it's frustrating because it's such a small, teeny, tiny little part of what yoga is. But I think that it's like an entryway for so many people, and it's imperfect, obviously. But I think that consideration is maybe one of the more important parts for some folks.
Yeah, for sure. But for the serious, it won't take longer than a week to choose. So
I disagree. I want to push back on that. Because I think about like finding even a teacher to know, say that I'm somebody who is in a wheelchair. You can't. It can take you weeks or months to be able to find, somebody who you have to have a little bit of blind trust, which for somebody who's experienced a lot of trauma, it should not be done quickly.
Yeah, I meant actually something different though. I didn't mean to find a class in a week. That will depend on the number of the classes that are available in the neighborhoods nearby, and other things too. The time of the person, and if it fits with uh, their schedule. Also, if they have to pay for it and how much. Do they have to go by car or? Yeah, I mean, it will certainly take few days or few months. I don't know, but I meant something different, which is if someone has a certain limitation, um, in order to understand what generally they can do and they can do, it won't take them seriously longer than a week to try to know, well, generally I can do things with this, but I can do things with that. And then after going to the class or at home, whatever, then the teacher will tell them, oh, yeah, then you can do this better. This can be done better. This won't be done at all. So it's more about the person being open to explore the movement of their body, which would need also courage. Some people
Mm-hmm.
might be a bit scared, or they don't want to try it, or embarrassed, or they feel, I can't do it, so no, I'm not gonna do it at all. Like they feel down, or they might be too um, excited that they might actually harm themselves. So we need like a balance for the person to know what they can do and what they can do. But generally, they can know that in a week, and then they can know in details when they are in the class. After a few days or few months, when they start the class, yeah, whenever this happens. Um, but to understand one's body, it doesn't take very long.
Oh, I
Uh,
totally disagree. So let me ask you, because one of the things that we talked about yesterday was embodiment and like how long that takes. I'm actually really curious now that I think about it, if this is a maybe a cultural difference, because here it's pushed so heavily to fucking detach, don't nothing, don't feel anything, don't think about like even like proprioception, like knowing where you are in space is not something that is encouraged. It's and we talked yesterday about like how long did it take me, going from a student for many years to becoming a teacher, to really feel embodied in my, like to know what my body feels like, to know. It took me years
yeah.
years to figure it out. And yoga was a huge proponent of that. Like that, I think that yoga is probably why I figured it out, because I stuck with it. But to know what my limitations are, especially as, bodies are changing constantly, whether we, even day to day, if you slept well, if you didn't sleep well, maybe you're getting older, maybe you have a new injury, whatever. I think to really know your body and to know what you can, and I don't want to say can't, but maybe shouldn't do, I think is potentially something that takes a little, like a fucking decade.
Maybe I'm wrong.
Well,
I
I'm jealous. You were just born and you were like, yeah, I'm in my body. I know what to do with this thing.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was just I would say assumption and optimistic way of seeing it.
Well, I mean, it would be great. That'd be
Maybe
amazing if
I'm
things
wrong.
only took a week.
Maybe I'm just wrong. Could be. But I didn't mean that the practice will take a week. I mean, I think, okay, I don't think yoga is sensitive to time. It is time insensitive. So the
Hmm.
person can be a yogi in few days. The person can be a yogi in years or 70 years. Time doesn't matter. It's not a factor. It really depends on so many things. The I would say the baseline health level and the willingness. How much time do they have per day? Um, Actually, even that might not be the case either. Uh, I would say even the daily time doesn't matter much. Um, it more, yeah, it's more about the readiness of the person, and so many other things. But I don't think time is at the top 10 even. It's very, very low on the list of the things that impact the practice. And I think this is also true for all other practices. So I would go with meditation too. A person can meditate for a few days and then they're done. Some people can do it for years, some people can do it for decades and they have nothing. Um, uh, Time is not a factor. I mean, the Buddha became the Buddha in, I guess, 6 days or 5 days. So he didn't take years at
So
all.
he beat you by 2 days. What you're saying.
I don't know, just like 2 days.
That
Uh,
guy.
yeah, under some tree in India now, the place is like holy and stuff. But I mean, he's just like a normal person. But it took him a few days. But he I mean, I claim that he didn't put a time limit on it. He didn't say, I want to be enlightened in 6 days. No, it never happened. He didn't even had the intention. Well, I don't know, obviously, but that's my guess.
I
That
think that's a pretty safe guess. That would be fucking hilarious if he was like, listen, if this doesn't work in 6 days, I'm doing a career change.
yeah, but I mean, he wanted it so bad. He gave up his uh, luxurious life. He went with so many other people to become enlightened. He practiced so many. He wanted it, so he got it. Um, with yoga, it's more open. It's a bit more liberal. It's not about moksha and liberation, nirvana, and all this kind of stuff anymore. And even if it is about them, people have the intention beforehand. So before they practice, they want to say, well, they say, I want to be free. Because they have that goal, now it becomes a thought, it becomes an idea, and then they practice with that in mind. So it becomes like any other goal. It's like a person who wants money. There's no, I don't think there's any difference. You both have certain goals and you are doing something to actually get them. The people who reach nirvana, if there is such a thing like that, they don't have a plan to do it. They simply have the desire to be free, and then they do something about it, and then they become free. It is as simple as that. It's not impossible goal, but because we plan to do it, we interfere in the process. We don't have a strong desire to have it, so we have to do something about it. Like if you have a strong desire for something, you won't plan it. I mean, you will also plan it, but you will just act. You'll just start doing something about it. Uh, um, the thinking won't take you very long. You will just do it directly. So,
So
so
you're not an indecisive person, are you? You're not like, what do you want for dinner? And you're like, I don't know. Because in my household, we are a family of deep anxiety. So the thinking and considering time is very important and probably overplayed here, I must say.
Yeah,
Um,
well,
I
yeah.
I want to say just be. I feel like this is important, and I don't want to forget. I love that you are able to. You are neutral on other people's goals. Like you just seem like so like whatever people want to do is what people want to do, and there's no. I'm noticing as you speak and over the past couple weeks as we've been doing this, I put my opinion on some of these things that come up. I mean, you say like it doesn't matter why somebody goes to a yoga class. If they want to go for a workout, then that's okay. Then that's their goal. And in my head, I'm like, no, don't. That's not what yoga is for. But you know what? It doesn't matter. I really need to calm down. So I just want to highlight that. Thank you for
Yeah,
making me realize I'm a fucking judgmental bitch.
yeah. I mean, there's no, yeah. I would say there's no reason to be, yeah, to differentiate between goals. They are all the same. Um, yeah.
See, and I even still, I want to be like, some are better than others, but that's not true. That's just simply based on what my goals are. Doesn't
I
have to
mean,
inform.
it might be true if you believe in something in particular, like if you have a framework that you follow, then according to what you believe, then things might be better than others. So this holds. So, for example, if someone follows a religion or a philosophy or an ethical framework of any kind, then then this framework will drive them. It will tell them what is true, what is not true, what is better than what. So they will follow that. And for them, it will be the truth, ultimate truth. Everything else is wrong. So it really depends on who you're asking, and people are different. So it's hard to find something that all people will actually agree on, for sure. Yeah.
So I'm curious. I don't think that we've talked about this yet. What your sort of like yoga arc was like? How did you find it? What was kind of like the progression of your exploring it? Because I think it's wildly different than mine.
Oh, well, I think the first thing I guess was some famous yogi. I don't remember who. I started to listen to him, and then I started, and then the first thing I did is that I read the Upanishads, and
Mm.
I think I read them twice or something, and then I followed what they said and how to sit and how to do things. Um, and then I bought few books from some yogis. I think Iyengar was one of them. He wrote two books or something about yoga. And then I just followed what is in the books. Like I would say carefully. I never had a formal teacher.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I started to do them yeah, with very slow, steady, easy way, every day. So I would start with asana, and then take a few minutes. I mean, now I forgot almost all the postures, and then but I remember that I would start with sun salutation, I think, and then I will end with like the dead body, like when you lie on the ground and you,
Savasana, yeah.
yeah, that thing. And I mean, that was like years ago. And
Mhm.
then after this, I would start pranayam for like 40 minutes or 30 minutes, and then I will end it. So the session will take 1 hour, or yeah, 1 hour plus minus. Um,
So
yeah.
your experience really was you tailoring the practice to you because you didn't have not that you didn't have teachers, because I think that reading is
Mhm.
consuming information, that person becomes your teacher. But you didn't have like somebody in your face being like, well, you're doing that wrong, or you should do this, or here's my practice, let me like give it to you. I think that's really cool. That's like a wonderful story.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think having a teacher or not, it makes. I mean, I would say having a teacher is generally better, especially at the start, because a person might do something that might harm themselves.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I like to consume things from the old days. So I was fond of buying the old yogic books, to and they have a lot of theology and sorry,
Mhm.
mythology, and a lot of things that are, I mean, if someone actually reads it now, they will just like, what, that's too much, that's like too far out. Yeah, things that are not explainable. So you have to actually believe it, or well, you can also, yeah, you can also put it in the trash bin. But now it's not integrated in most of the classes, as far as I know. It's too much for the modern person to handle this. It's too much.
I
I don't
don't
know.
think it is. I think it just doesn't play into capitalism well. You can sell a yoga class that's going to make you look super hot, but to be like, let's talk about the Bhagavad Gita, people are going to be like, what the? I'm not paying you for this. I'm here to make my lunch look really cool.
Yeah. um, yeah, and I also became vegetarian in that time, because yeah, that is one of the principles. Everything else I had, like no stealing and no, yeah, that is easy shit, I have
Well,
that.
yeah, I mean, you weren't you
And
weren't a piece
no
of shit
harm,
human before, yeah.
no harm, no killing, no, yeah.
That I have tattooed on me. I have a himsa as my
Yeah,
tattoo.
nice. Yeah.
That made me vegan.
Yeah. What else? Also, they have the celibacy thing. Yeah, and then after some time, um, I started to give up asana a bit by bit, and then I stick to pranayam. I stayed like that for some time, and then I gave up the whole thing. I don't do yoga anymore. Um,
Well, I disagree. I think you do the all of the other yoga things that aren't like a sit and let me think about doing yoga. But no stealing, non-harm. Though I feel like the way
oh
that you move through the world is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. True, but I think the other principles are pretty much common in most of the schools. So, like, you cannot really differentiate. It's yeah.
I see what you're
I
saying.
would say
Yeah.
it's like common principles between so many schools of thoughts, and so it's hard to say, oh, this is from yoga. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, it's more of a general thing, anyways. But the thing was also about the celibacy. That is not something that I think it is necessary, but it fits with their framework very well, because the sexual energy is part of the energy of the body that needs to be transformed to be pure consciousness. They had a name in Sanskrit, but I forgot it. That was like years ago. So you transform that form of energy into something of higher.
Mm.
form of energy. Um, so if you subscribe to that framework, it's fine. I don't. Um, it's yeah. I mean,
Well, it all
it's
goes back to what your goal is, right? I mean, if your sole focus is enlightenment, you probably should be celibate because I think that if you're going to go that way, you change a lot of other things in your life as well. So that's like one of the
no.
many parts of it. I would like to be enlightened, but I'm not gonna be celibate.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, why would anyone wants to be enlightened has to give up sex? There's no
Mm.
relation between both, unless you believe in what the yogis say, which is a different story. Um, but no enlightened person made a concrete plan to become enlightened. If you go and try to read the people who supposedly enlightened, it just happened to them. So I think Ramana Maharshi, he just had a physical experience in his body. He didn't like have a plan to become enlightened. It just happened to him. Maharaji, supposedly uh, enlightened. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what that means.
Hmm.
Either it's just a word, but people say they are, so they are okay. He wasn't actually celibate. He had a family and he was married and he had kids as well. So he was deemed a saint. And people say, well, he had so many miracles. I mean, people go far to the level that he can become like he can actually travel between two places very fast. Once he was in the train and actually something happened, and then he was asked for his ticket. He didn't have one, so he got kicked out of the train. So the train actually didn't leave at all. It didn't move until someone in the train actually told him that he has to get Maharaja inside. Once they did, then the train started to move. So people say a lot of miracles. And what happened with Ramdas when he asked about his mother? He didn't know his mother at all. He told him, "Yeah, last night you were thinking about your mother." Ramdas never told anybody. Uh, so people claim or say that he had things of that sort. He wasn't celibate. He
Yeah,
had a family.
not
He
at all.
No, not really. Actually, some people were shocked that he had a family because they assumed that he was actually celibate because of this. Because it is actually very famous that the yogis are usually celibate, but there is no reason to be celibate. Because if you, I mean, this will fall in the very famous trap. The thing that you deny becomes your prison. So this is what they say. So if you deny yourself sex, then it will become the prison that you will be in. So how come it doesn't hold with the general framework? Um, but it holds from a different point. They say, well, we will transform that energy into something else. So the need for sex will disappear over time or will decrease over time until it will fade away because the sexual energy will be something else. So they have a framework for it. Um, so they somehow are trying to say that the sexual urges or the need for sex is only in the sexual energy. But is that true? I am not sure. This is a big claim. But
But I think it's difficult to say anything definitively for all people because there are people like if you think about people that are asexual who just are not interested in sex at all, for them to be celibate is like no thing. But if you take somebody who, like there are ways that like everything on earth you can use them in a helpful way, or you can maybe like maybe you're past the point of like this is helping you. I think of like the kink community is a really great way for some people to process a lot of like stress and a lot of energy, and to take that away from somebody in that, you know, a particular type of person would be harmful to tell somebody who just is not interested in sex at all to be celibate. So they're going to be like, okay, fine.
yeah.
To
Mhm.
the framework is important, and you're right, it's like maybe it's good for you, and maybe this is not, try the
Yeah,
other thing.
but
There's a million options.
yeah, true. But this is generally doesn't fit with the framework of yoga. Unfortunately,
Hmm.
because it is just the principles for all the
Yeah.
practitioners, and it turns out that most of the people who are deemed enlightened, whatever this means, they never practiced yoga in the conventional way. Never. They never sit down and made anything of that sort. They never, I clearly wasn't with them, but that's what the people have seen them said, and what the biographers also said of them. So they never actually practiced yoga in the conventional way. Um, I would say mostly they didn't actually practice anything in the conventional sense. Maybe Maharaji is different, but he did something a bit radical. He went to a cave for several years, and he didn't have any contact with anyone for decades. So this is not a certain practice. It's not like someone who meditates after they come from work and then they sleep and then they continue their life afterward. This guy, he devoted decades of his life uh, doing this only, nothing else. So this is a different story. Um, so um, the level of devotion that he did uh, is on a different scale. It's just different level of the things that other people do. If you see the practitioners now in any school, it's quite hard to find someone who is that devoted. For us, I would say it's like activities that we do. It's like I go to the cinema, or I go to the gym, or I meet friends, and I also meditate. So it's an activity that you do, because my life is not perfect. It's not ideal. It's not in the way that I want. So I have heard that meditation will make it better. So hence I meditate. Yeah, and I meditate for 20 minutes a day, because this is what the studies have been like said, like to improve the stress level, cortisol and stuff, and to feel better. And yeah, you need to practice that, yeah, in this way, in that way, etc. So the whole thing is being done from a completely different standpoint. It's very, very, very different from someone who in his 17th of age, he went to some cave and stayed there until he's 30 something and never came out because he wanted to, and he never had any contact with anyone. This is, I mean, he paid a price for this. Uh, so it is very, very, very different. And So the game about being free, liberated, enlightened, it's all words. It doesn't mean anything at all. Uh, there is no person who is enlightened that can tell that he actually is enlightened. There's no way for him to tell. It's not possible because the word is a conceptual idea. It is a mental idea. You are enlightened. You can't know that you are because your mind cannot recognize that anymore. You are on a different level, and not higher or lower. It's more like uh, um, it, for you. It's not words anymore. It's not a moksha or liberation or all this kind of stuff because they don't mean anything. Um, yeah, they are just words. I know this is a bit radical or not really the common thing to say the or what is expected, but you cannot comprehend a state of being using your mind. It's not possible. It's like someone who lost their kid and someone is trying to them, I know actually how you feel. No, you don't. You don't. If someone lost their child, you can't know how they feel. Why? Because you are trying to know using the mind. Oh, it must have been so difficult on you. It's so horrible. I am so sorry. Well, you can try to actually understand a bit, maybe, but you can never know. It is not the same. So it is exactly in the same way. You can say, oh, this is enlightenment or this is like liberation, but you can never know because you can't comprehend a state of being using your mind. It's not possible. It is
I'll give
impossible.
I'll give
Yeah.
an example in Yoga Nidra. There's been a couple times where when you're doing the full like practice, like the full arc, the goal is to release from ego, to detach from I-ness. And there've been a couple of times where I'm like, oh my god, I did it. And in that set, it's over. Because the
Yeah.
second you have realization that you've done it, you're back to I, as the being, and it's like, oh shit,
Yeah,
I
but
had it.
yeah, but yeah, this is actually very true. Once you know that you did it, it is exactly the same moment that you don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Because you are starting to think about it, and once you think, you have the ego, you have
Mm-hmm.
identity because you actually started to think. But there is another subtle point, which is if you have intention to detach from the ego, what you will do is a mental or I would say a mind induced um, a mind induced process. So even if you will do it, it is not the real thing. It is your mind told you that now you are detached. It is uh, mind induced experience. Um, because you can't plan it. It's like, oh, now I have to sit down and do something, whatever that is, and then I become detached. Yeah, you will, but it is your mind that actually telling you that you are, because there's no way for you to know. Because once you are detached, you're gone. You don't know. There's no knowledge anymore. The knowledge is gone because the knowledge is the identity. the memory that you have that tells you, yeah, I am this, I am that. But if you are truly detached, then there's no knowledge anymore. The knowledge is gone. And if the knowledge is gone, you can't know if you are detached or not. So it's kind of, you know, the start, but you can never know the end. It is not possible for you to know if you will actually did it or not. Ironically, it doesn't matter. But yeah, maybe that's...
It's such a funny thing to even try to talk about, because how can you talk about a thing that maybe we've hit before, maybe not, but it's different for everybody. What does it look like? Was it actually enlightenment? But now that we're thinking about it, probably not, because there's thought behind it. Like, it's one of my like most frustrating but funniest things to talk about, because it's so complicated, and
Yep.
there's not like a tangible thing with it, which makes it just hilarious, honestly.
Yeah, yeah, it's I would say it's a kind of a paradox, because
Mm-hmm.
you want to know it, but because you want to know it, you can't actually know.
You're already fucking it
You don't
up.
have the knowledge. You have, yeah, you have, okay, you have to not have the knowledge. It's uh but then if you don't have the knowledge, there is no way for you to know. So the demand to know is the problem. That you want to know is the problem. It's not a problem in the sense it is bad, but the problem in preventing you to get what you want. Assuming what you want is actually to be free, which is controversial. I mean, free from what? But yeah, it's yeah. I think this is the paradox somehow. But
All right. Well, we're about at time. Do you have it? Do you want to throw in anything extra just to make
I
people's brains hurt before we sign
I
off?
blabbered a lot. I said so much stuff.
Oh, this is
I
totally
don't want to
unrelated.
add more.
I listened to a podcast the other day. I listened to a lot of podcasts about like trash TV, and it was these two friends, and one of them just went on this whole speech, and the one of the hosts talked for a couple of minutes, and then the other co-host was like, "Oh my god, you talked for 3 minutes straight. That was so long." And I have never laughed so hard, because you and I go for like 10 or 15-minute chunks, and I was like, "Oh, people are upset about three." Shit.
You see, yeah. So yeah, and now at the end you want me even to say something further. So I
I don't
shouldn't.
know. I just want to make sure you you feel satisfied by the end of this. All
Oh,
right. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. You can find us. I'll link all this stuff in the show notes. So I figured out how to do that. Don't follow us on TikTok. We don't use TikTok. We have one, but Instagram, Twitter. Do we post on Twitter? I don't know that we do. We have one, but
I guess.
and tell us where you started yoga. I think that would be a really interesting to know what everyone's arc is, like what caused people to stay with it. And now I'm gonna go. I just like cough for like 10 minutes straight after this. So thanks everyone, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.